Alright guys, so today we're getting a special peek at the Invaders and how they're going to tackle the raids. We're going to quickly look at the changes to Nick Fury because he's the centerpiece of this team. He is what makes the team go vroom. So we're going to do that at Doom3.5. We're going to talk about the team, its powers, its shortcomings, what not to do, positioning, T4s, isolate, all that nonsense. I hope you enjoy the video and I will see you very soon. But there'll be light on because my son came down to the lights off. But this is the life of a stay-at-home dad, I guess. Alright, so before we jump into the footage, let's take a quick look at the reworked Nick Fury. I don't have it written down nicely in bullet points, but we can go through the test server kit real quick and talk about it. And you do not need all the T4s I'm showing here. They're nice, but you don't need them, particularly the ultimate, and actually the passive is pretty skippable now. You'll notice he's a skirmisher. We'll talk about that when we talk about his passive. So let's go ahead and look at the basic here. Now, obviously you don't need that T4. It's just damage. It's kind of useless. And it's the same as it used to be. He'll do an attack. He'll chain, generate one ability energy on each crit. So he can generate 2 ability energy. But now it cannot go to summoned adjacent allies. Now, I did make that mistake in the recording, if I remember correctly, saying like maybe the summons will eat it. So Raider doesn't really hold value. That was incorrect. So it only goes to non-summoned adjacent allies. That's great. I still don't think Raider is the play. And again, we'll talk about that when we look at the passive. If we look at the special, this is 10% healing on that T4. I'm kind of hiding it. That's nice. I don't think they need the healing. I think the shield operatives from the summons do a really good job. And you have Iron Fist doing his thing too. But there is some changes here. So he gains defense up for 2 turns and death proof for 2 turns. He'll spread everything. And then he's going to heal. And they included the Invader allies here for 30% of his max health. That's a really big heal. Without it, it's 20%, which is still a really big heal. And they also do a lot of healing. So I like that T4 as like a high luxury, I guess. Not necessary. Then we have his summons. This one you definitely want a T4. You want to take the RNG out of it and make sure you're getting 3 of those shield agents. So he's going to summon those agents, gain positive effects for 2 turns. He's going to apply defense up, death proof, and taunt. That taunt does a lot of work in the raids to all of them. So the operative and the security. And then you get a mixture of them. You don't really get to pick how much you get. What I want to quickly look at is these minions, and just most importantly, that Invader tag that they both have. That's kind of the most important thing. So they're going to be getting all the stat passive buffs that the rest of the team is getting. So definitely T4 on that one. And then we have the passive. Now this is a book and a half to read. Let's go through the good parts. He's always going to get speed up on spawn, so he's always going to go first. This next part is pretty cool. He's going to get speed bar 10% plus 10% per Invader ally. This actually makes him go before Zemo. That opens up the door to some pretty interesting new things you can do. But alas, the team sucks outside of raids. In War and Crucible, it's really bad. We'll take a look at that at the end after we enjoy the raids, and then we'll look at the War and Crucible. A little bit of salt with the sugar from the raids. We got to do it, you know what I mean? And then on turn, 50% chance to apply speed up to Self, Shield Minion, Kestrel, and Coulson. Now this is actually 30% without that passive, which is nice to have, but not completely necessary. And then we have on hero ally's turn, 30% chance to apply assist now to self or random ally. It's 20% without the passive, but we don't care about that. Let's continue. So if the ally granted assist now is the most important thing is those shield minions invaders, they also gain offense up. But here's why this passive doesn't really matter as much anymore. Because in raids with 3 or more invader allies, always apply assist now to self or random ally. I really like that. And that's why I like having 3 skirmishers and 2 strikers. You're going to see that. Long story short, Bucky and Baron are blasters. They do a pretty good damage. They have interesting attacks on their ISO attack. So I like them being strikers. I like the other 3 being skirmishers because although Raider can get you energy with Fury and Raider on Iron Fist can get you a bunch of vulnerables, I like having like the guaranteed 3-tap when those 2 take their turns. And I mean, it's not guaranteed. There's a 25% chance it won't be if it chooses the other one. But also the other 3 people are taking attacks and they're probably going to be blanketed vulnerables. And if you have it on autoplay, then for sure, whoever your characters are hard targeting is going to have vulnerables. So that's kind of why I like my method better. 3 skirmishers, 2 strikers. You'll see that as we start the footage. But that is it for the changes to Nick Fury, guys. Let's go ahead and check out the footage and I hope you enjoy. All right, guys, so let's not waste any time. Let's jump right into Doom difficulty 3.5 with our Invader team. They're all at 4 red, 4 yellow, and we're going to go through these 3 nodes. Now, some misplays were happening. I'm going to comment on that and how you can make sure it's perfectly fixed. But then on the boss node, all the pieces came together, and we can go from there. So on this first node, we're going to see the strength of this team and also the weakness of this team is very apparent from both sides. First things first, I will say though, I would change the positioning here. It doesn't matter for this first node, but it will matter for node number 2 and the third node. Put Captain America in a back slot with Fury and Bucky Barnes adjacent. What that does is Captain America's kit only gives that energy to adjacent allies, and you definitely want Fury to be able to open up with his ultimate every turn, and Bucky to be able to open up with that offense up. So what we're going to see right away is you got to lose that old mentality, the old Fury where you got to spread that special first for the speed up. We don't want to do that. The reason we don't is because the minions are on crack now with Fury. They're so good. And they spawn with taunt, and that's going to protect you from a character like Loki, from a character on that second node like Silver Samurai. They're bonkers good now, the minions. So kind of a good thing because they do so much of the lifting as far as damage goes. Now you're going to see what I'm talking about because we're going to get an entire wave of turns from our team and just watch the lack of damage that happens here. So we got one more turn coming in, and I think we're going to do the super cool tank attack. Yeah, it's such a cool attack. But now look, the enemy team, even the characters that don't have defense up, no one's in yellow yet. Now that's a problem. That's indicative of the issues this team faces because the damage is an issue, a big issue, especially with Bucky giving 60% on his passive and only in raids. So you can just imagine how this team will function outside of raids, which we will show at the end of this video. I don't want to harp on it too much. I do though, which is why we're going to include it in the video. But we're going to fast forward a little bit because nothing exciting is happening, but you're seeing kind of how this team works and why this team works. And in short, it's that you cover yourself in defensive buffs and offense up, and you blanket the enemy team in offense down, slows, and turn meter rewinds. So you get in control and you stay in control. You'll see no summons are happening. That's a big part of why this team works as well, particularly on that boss node. So we're just whittling the team down, whittling them down. Bucky Barnes actually gets yeeted off the map. Now, the reason that happened, though, is because there was no minions out. If minions are out, they all have this taunt. They have the death proofs. They got the defense up. They take the hits super well, and your team is very protected. Luckily, there is a safety blanket, and that is going to be what brings Bucky back. Now, if you are doing, say you're simming this, or you're doing really small Invader team into Doom 3.5, you might want to have Iron Fist adjacent to Captain America instead so that he always has that taunt up turn 1. But again, if you've got a big Fury, which hopefully you do, you're going to be able to summon first and just protect yourself. So let's just keep fast forwarding through this and you see, get through it easily enough. Now let's get on over to node number 2. Again, the Fury minions on the opposite side, they will not be the new Fury minions. They're going to be the old school ones. But if you're using this team, they won't even exist. And if you're using Kestrel, they're not even going to exist. So does it really matter? Only in that, he's not going to spread defense or death proof when he does his next turn. But the big power here is that you have so much speed. Morbius isn't going to go until you get to control him. Silver Samurai as well. He resists that, but if he did get stunned, then he's not going to come in and do what he's about to do to Nick Fury. But once again, the summons with the taunt would protect your Nick Fury here because, yeah, Nick Fury gets targeted by the Silver Samurai, gets destroyed, hit by a chain, then he's dead. And that's okay. That's just the way she goes. You see, we're just tickling damage, and eventually people start dying. The minions are now up, and that's when you really start seeing the enemies getting taken out. One of the big damage components on this team is that Nick Fury passive, where he's actually calling in assists from random people. And that's really kind of dictates my choices from the ISO. So I have this all up on the Patreon as far as infographics go, but I'm going to give you the long and the short of it right now, is that I really liked covering this team with strikers and skirmishers. Iron Fist, you can make the argument as a raider because his special and his ultimate do AoE damage. So that's a lot of vulnerables you can get from that. But I kind of preferred having targeted vulnerables. And I also really liked when him, Captain America, or even Fury were called in from that Fury assist, it would be a double tap if it was on a character like Bucky Barnes or Union Jack's turn. But the ISOs don't seem to matter at all on 3.5. Even these small teams, they're just kind of jacking their way through it, and it's not a big problem at all. So you see, the team ends up, even though there was a slight misplay at the beginning, we didn't summon right away. Actually, we couldn't summon right away, I believe. Let's just keep going. I think it was because Captain America didn't give energy to Fury. Yeah, Captain America didn't give energy to Fury. So unfortunately, we couldn't summon. That would have protected him. And there you go. But let's get on over to the boss note, and we'll see how that one's going to work for us. So right away, summoned turn number 1, you're going to see just the amazing difference those summons make. So we get a bunch of assists coming in from Fury, which does give slows all over the place. And you even get to do a stun on Strife just because of the way the slows planned out. And then you have Mystique doing her mind control. But again, the Fury summons are taunting. So you're safe from that. And now you get a stun. You could throw that on Madeline so she doesn't ult. You can use it on Sinister. You could, but why? Because he's just going to clone, and that doesn't matter because Captain America's passive will stop that. And then from here, you're just in utter control, and the enemy is slowly losing speed bar, slowly losing control. You see, he's killing himself on those counterattacks. Similar to like how Underworld beats Darkhold in War, the counterattacks from this team are just crazy. They absolutely rip through anyone that decides they want to try and do an AoE. So as you see, it just kind of keeps going. Now, we did target Doom here. I'm going to show you very soon, actually, why Sim might be a little bit of an issue with smaller teams on this node in particular. And you see he's getting through it super duper fast because of those minion summons now kind of flooding the field. Now, how many do we have? We got 4. You could have had 6 if they didn't die, and sometimes they don't die because the death proofs and the amazing control and speed bar manipulation this team gets only in raids. So working through it, and eventually just get it done. Now keep an eye on that timer; it gets fairly low. And what I'm going to do now is we're actually going to phase over to me. I maxed out the team at 7 yellow, 4 red. Just the essential T4 still, and I just went in and hit auto. So we can get a glimpse of what this team does when we try and full sim it. Let's go check that out. Now here we go with the sim. Now all these characters now are 7 yellow, 4 red. And I just wanted to show how this sims. Now I also did this when they were all 4 red, 4 yellow, and I had pretty much the exact same results, but one moment that was really scary, and we'll talk about that. That's why I kind of wanted to show this, even though I couldn't actually get the recording because my phone was full. But I'm worried that this node might be difficult to sim with smaller teams. And the reason for that is just the lack of damage and the lack of the AI when you sim it having a single brain cell. But Beast and Iceman here are actually going to completely take themselves out. Those Fury summons with the counters, and then they just really die, which is great. Iceman gets got there by the adjacent attack from Bucky Barnes. And then Union Jack will come in, and we have just a bunch of vulnerables because I like my ISO setup. Especially for simming, I like how the vulnerables are going to be on exactly who you want. Guaranteed if you have enough skirmishers, and then you also have the Fury coming in, maybe calling in and potentially some triple taps, and that's the way I like it. So you see the sim not doing you any favors here, going for Sinister before, say, going for Doom, or going for Madeline, or even going before the Emma here. And now we push Doom. Now this was the part that got really scary with my smaller team. So on my smaller team, Madeline didn't have offense down. She must have resisted it. Doom, though, not going to use his ultimate. He's not going to get all those buffs because Captain America does stop him from summoning, which is what gives him those buffs. But after that, Madeline came in and she took a bunch of turns and she was like bringing people to 5% life. But they did live and they did pull through it. Nobody died, but I can see how it could get a little scary. And that's the issue with Sim. Sim leaves Doom for last. Like literally last. He's the last character the sim goes for, despite him being in the second position, or what we would consider the second position, right? That back right position. I don't know how it works with the in-between positions as far as numerical priority, but I thought that was kind of weird. Anyway, you can see it's doing its thing. Now this is a full team with 7 yellow, 4 red, only the essential T4s. We got gear tier. I want to see 17 on Bucky, 15 on everybody else, and 16 on Fury. And they're going to end it with about a minute and a half left. Now, before I upgraded them, they did also one-shot the node, but with 45 seconds left. So what I would suggest is practicing with this team before attempting to one-shot this node, I guess, or don't, and just two-shot it for the first couple days to get the hang of it. But when you are targeting this, you can beat this node with a 4 red, 4 yellow team, probably with about 2 minutes left. So there is a big damage issue with this team, and that gets heavily exploited in War and Crucible, which is what we're about to go talk about. But at the end of the day, I think this footage speaks for itself in as far as the team is great in raids. They are better than Rebirth was because of the energy from Captain America and the control and protection from the Fury minions. From the Fury minions. So if you need the skill raid team, if you haven't already built up Secret Avengers, I strongly suggest not doing that. Build up Kestrel, build up Captain Sam. They're great plug and play. Sharon Carter is going to hit the bench because she's slow, even though her kit is really interesting with that stun, with that extra focus. If you haven't built up your Secret Avengers yet, or you need to further build them to take on the harder Doom difficulties, I would say pivot. Get these new characters at 3 stars free to play, or buy them and get them to 4 or 5, whatever the case may be. But you don't need to crack it out on them to beat Doom 3.5 comfortably, I guess is what I would like the takeaway message to be. And if this is how this team functions, I don't think Secret Avengers stands a chance in the next raid. Because this team is heavy on speed reduction, taking hits, the safety mechanic behind the revive on Iron Fist, and the minions getting that taunt with the death proof, which I suppose you could still get with Fury and Secret Avengers. But the way they take turns, the way they take hits, I don't think Secret Avengers could ever do that. And for that reason, I don't think Secret Avengers will stand a chance in the next raid. So if you haven't already got your Secret Avengers built, pivot now. And if you are using your Secret Avengers, you don't need to rush build this team. So similar to Rebirth, you don't need to rush build this team. But the difference between this team and Secret Avengers and Rebirth and, say, Web Warriors, there's a big gap difference. Invaders is a much better jump than Secret Avengers, than, say, Web Warriors was a better jump to Rebirth. Because this team can sim at low levels. This team can definitely sim. Anyways, now that I've spoken the team up, let's go trash this team by showing how they function outside of raids. Maybe that was a little hyperbolic. We're not going to trash the team. We're just going to show that they are garbage. They're absolute garbage outside of raids. They weren't meant to be played outside of raids. And you can tell by the way the team basically auto plays, right? They were made to sim Doom 3.5, and probably you need to be a little creative in the next raid. But when you put this team on defense, say in War or Crucible, it's a massacre for you. It's not good. And the damage that the team lacks, because that Bucky Barnes, it's not even that half of the damage is gated behind raids. It's that 2/3 of the damage is gated behind raids. So out of that 60%, it's only, I think, 20 that is applied outside of raids, which is crazy. The team lacks so much damage. So we're using Black Order to illustrate this here. And this will show one of the many weaknesses this team has when they're used on defense, and that is just flips. So Black Order is going to flip all those regens, flip everything into bleeds. And the most important flip here was that offense up being flipped into offense down. So the team now does like tickly damage. So they already lack damage to a huge degree. And now you take that offense up away from them, it's even worse. Union Jack is actually going to bleed out here. And Iron Fist, because it's outside of raids, doesn't even decide to revive him. This team was heavily gated behind AI play and the raid tag. So if you want a skilled raid team, they're fantastic. If you want a new War or Crucible team, this ain't it. So that's one of the weaknesses this team has, is just the way it plays out, cover themselves in buffs, leave themselves vulnerable to that. But there's another issue, and let's go talk about that. We don't need to watch the end of this. This is sad. Our best of the worst offense teams, if you will. Like, this team is barely hanging on to the current meta as it is because we're getting flooded with offensive teams. That's going to be Z Factor with X23 instead of Multiple Man. And this team really does kind of display some big issues that the Invaders have. And a little bit of some kind of strength that they also have. But let's go in there. Yeah, this is kind of funny. So one of the biggest issues this team has, if you ever try and put them on defense, is the summons. So their biggest strength in raids becomes their biggest detriment elsewhere, because we have teams that abuse summons, right? So here, Zemo's going to go, he's going to take a bunch of buffs off, but he does not peel the taunt off of the right guard. So he gets stuck. He does not get a crit. That doesn't help our X Factor teammates, but a minion gets low, which helps X23 go, but she also didn't get a crit, so that doesn't help it. And there comes the next issue with this team. Speed. Speed is king in this game. That's the whole reason, you know, the big hubbubaloo about Apocalypse. He's too slow, and that's exactly what happens here with them on defense as well. Shatterstar goes first. He's guaranteed to get crits because that special cannot be blocked. Now they're covered in defense down. They don't have defense up. X23 just decides she doesn't care about minions, so she kills everybody else, and the rest is history. Look, I gotta pause it because it's about to end before I can get to my point here. The minions are an issue, and the speed is an issue. Now, everyone has this, you know, really great other raid team built called Death Seed, and Death Seed will abuse the heck out of these minions as well. So Invader is just not good on defense in Crucible or War, and that's kind of been the old trope, right? Is that new teams end up on defense because they got new stats and they're confusing and hard to beat. This team does not fit that bill. This team is really bad. This team would also get dumpstered by Secret Avengers because, you know, your Fury will give speed up to your team. You'll go first. His Fury is not going to summon anything because you have a Kestrel, and then everybody's dead. You kill everybody. So just not the same kind of impact. And if you use them on offense, this team tickles. Against the current meta teams like Heroes for Hire, Young Avengers, I don't even want to show you that footage because of how depressing it is. This team tickles. People get plucked off. The Iron Fist doesn't do res outside raids. But this is not supposed to be a War Crucible team. I don't think that is a good enough excuse for how bad they are. But at the end of the day, if you want a War Crucible team, this ain't it. If you want a raid team, this is it. This is going to be everybody's future raid team. Like it or hate it. It's the way it is. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you have a good day.
That's it for the video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Stay happy, healthy, have fun, and I'll see you in the next one.